Would you believe me if I told you that just 3 letters could dramatically change your life? That just 3 letters could redefine the way you look at everything, the way you make decisions, your perceptions of right and wrong, the way that you define what's important in life. That just 3 letters could be the reason for your deepest weakness and your strongest strengths, your deepest sorrows and your purest joy. That just 3 letters could destroy you completely, only to be the main reason that you persevere. That they could break you down to the bone, only to make you more whole than you ever thought possible. What if I told you that just 3 letters, ALS, have done all of these things and more in my life? Last year, my dad was diagnosed with ALS. Many of you may know this disease from the Ice Bucket Challenge, or perhaps as from Stephen Hawking, who suffered from it as well. How many of you actually participated in the Ice Bucket Challenge? See, that's incredible. Thank you so much. ALS is a neurodegenerative disease that affects the motor neurons in the body, making the body unable to walk, talk, move, chew or swallow, and even breathe on its own. It's a completely debilitating disease, and those affected by it become prisoners in their own bodies, spectators in their own lives. But they still have their mind and their senses intact, so they can still feel pain, and they still feel emotions, but they can't cry out for help. And they feel urges to itch, but they can't scratch it. Can you imagine having an itch and not being able to scratch it? Every day since my dad was diagnosed has been a challenge for me and my family. Watching my own father deteriorating in front of my eyes and not being able to do anything, not being able to stop the pain, has been unbearable. Last year, my dad was on top of the world. He was a dentist and a self-made entrepreneur and owned 9 dental practices. He was a husband, a beautiful husband, and a father that any child would be blessed to have. And this diagnosis made him even more special, but it impacted him in ways that he could have never expected. The worst part, however, has been the loss of his speech. Ever since he lost his speech, I've never thought that I'd miss so badly the sound of my own father's voice telling me that he loves me, instead of one synthesized by a communication device. Every day is a gift, and every day it seems that my father had lost more and more functions, become more weak and more weak. It seemed as if his muscles were eroding away like sand by the shore. ALS impacts 2 out of every 100,000 people. It is so rare. So when we received this diagnosis, we were blindsided. We couldn't comprehend how something so rare and so terrible could happen to our family. In fact, before we got a diagnosis, we called ALS the big bad wolf, because saying those 3 letters out loud was so scary, and we thought just by saying them, we could manifest them in our lives. It was something like saying Voldemort or Bloody Mary. We were so afraid of the outcome. And ever since then, we've learned to live with it, but it still hasn't been the same. And no matter how much we denied it, no matter how the amount of sticks or bricks or straw that we stacked up against it, the big bad wolf, ALS, blew our house down, leaving us utterly devastated. Ever since my dad was diagnosed, I've still been at school. I'm still taking tests, doing assignments. I've still had to balance my school life and my home life and being there for my dad. But it also served as a sort of denial for me. Being at school and walking the halls, pretending like nothing was happening, like that I was okay and I was normal. Because first of all, I had to, because nobody at my school knew what was happening in my family. But it was not just pretending for them, it was pretending for myself as well. And all of this changed when my dad decided to reveal his diagnosis to the world, and with it, my world. And I was completely blindsided. School was not an escape anymore. It wasn't a chance for me to get some normalcy. It was an extension of what was happening at home. And so from that point onwards, I took some time off of school to spend with my father. We went and traveled for treatment. And at that point, reality struck me like a wrecking ball, square in the gut, and I couldn't breathe. And all the emotions that I had kept bottled up and buried deep inside of me for months, the feelings of fear, uncertainty, the anger, the stress, the sadness, the feelings of insufficiency, of guilt, all of it came rushing in and surging out all at once, and it bombarded me out of nowhere. I was overwhelmed to the point where I went into a sort of emotional paralysis. For a week, I couldn't get out of bed. I bawled my eyes out and wallowed my heart out. But what I realized was that every moment I spent wallowing about an uncertain, ambiguous future, I was not spending those moments with my dad, who was still here. And I decided I was going to claw myself out of this hole. But I didn't know how. I had gotten too deep. But then I realized that every time I had hit a crossroads before, every time I didn't know what to do or I was struggling, I'd always go to my dad. And he always knew what to say to me, to make me feel better and to tell me what to do. And this time was not any different. My dad was still here to give me guidance, albeit through a mechanical voice. So I went to him. I laid on his lap and I cried on his shoulder and I told him everything that I was going through. And as every other time, he knew exactly what to say to me. And what he said that night, I will never forget. He told me that my love was pure and strong, and that it, more than anything else, had the power to heal him. And so at that point, I realized I was overcomplicating everything. This was simple. All that I had to do was love my dad, which I already did. I just kept it inside. So from that point, I overflowed with love. I loved him and I spent time with him. And what I realized was that this love, this all-encompassing love, was just as healing for me as it was for him. I guess it is true what the Beatles say. All you really need is love. So after that, I used this love as my engine as I tried to navigate what my impact would be in the world of ALS. And that's when I created a 501(c) foundation called the Lalji ALS Foundation. I decided that I would use this newfound passion for ALS, for finding a cure and treatment for ALS, which right now there is no effective treatment or cure, to bring hope to other ALS patients, like my dad. So our foundation is guided towards bringing hope, raising awareness, and conducting research to find treatment. And from there, I started a Day of Silence campaign at my school, wherein over 500 students practiced silence for an entire day just to raise awareness for ALS. And I can tell you, it's very difficult to get high school students to be quiet for a whole day. But it was 71% of my high school. And that day I realized how many people care about things if you just give them the opportunity to. And from there, I realized that fire can either burn you or ignite you. And in this case, we have chosen to let it ignite us. True, we won't get out unscratched, that this definitely had an impact on my family. My mother, who doesn't get any sleep, who runs around in 1,000 different directions, has still found a way to use her functional medicine background to connect dots in ways that we could have never expected, to find treatments that she pulls out of the sky. She is running on some sort of energy, I don't even know. But then my brother, who is 15 years old, who has become a nutrition and food expert in neurological diseases. 15. And my dad, who has been a beacon of strength, who has kept our family together, who is the epitome of smiling through the pain. I mean, look at that smile. I think if he can smile like that in the midst of everything that he's going through, why can't we? Why can't we smile? Why can't we find reasons to love people immensely, to smile genuinely? If he can find reasons to be grateful in the midst of everything that he's lost, why can't we? If he can find reasons to keep putting one foot in front of the other when he literally can't walk, why can't we? In life, I believe that you do not choose your mission. Your mission chooses you. And we have decided to take this as a mission, as something gifted to us, to make an impact on the world. And yes, it's okay that sometimes you take it to heart and you wallow a bit, but life is not defined by the moments of weakness. It's defined by your ability to move forward from weakness, to get back up despite every bone in your body telling you not to. And that is how you turn tragedy into transformation. Thank you.